Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is David Collinge of the Flat Pack Theatre. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
It's good to be here. It's really, really good to be here. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, it's good to finally have you here. We tried to get one of your fellow theatre colleagues on the show, and it didn't quite work out. And then he suggested your name, and I was like, "Cool, all right, let's do it. I want to do this. Let's do it." And then things happen, life
Things get in the
happens,
way.
things get
Yeah.
in the way. Yeah, but here we are.
No, I don't know if it's just something in the air. Me and the hospital, we've been good friends. Yeah, I've been visiting the hospital quite a few times recently. I don't know what it is, but
That's
never
scary.
stops the art. Well, yeah, but I don't know. You say it's scary, but
It
also
is.
I don't know. I feel like as artists, we kind of not ignore any sort of health issues. That's the wrong idea. But we can kind of I don't know. Feels like we made a stir of stuff. We'll kind of look at broken legs and heart conditions and go, yeah, after the show, we'll sort it. You know?
That's too real, man. I always just think of that quote from that Rocky film where it's like he goes like, "If he dies, he dies." I just think that I'm like, if I die, I die. Like,
Yeah.
at this point, fuck it.
I hope. Yeah. As long as I go out in a relatively funny way, that'll do. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you don't want to get like known for that, like only how you died. That's the thing.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a brilliant start to a podcast.
Fantastic. There you
Talking
go.
about talking about how and when you die. Funny enough, the name of the show we're doing is called When You Die. Got to plug it in somewhere. Um, yeah, that's the
Explore with
sort.
us that show. Let's come on. Let's go into it.
Yeah,
You
of
brought it
course.
up.
So, um, Frederick, who is the producer and the other director, as part of the show, sort of wrote this play to really tackle the themes of loss and to tackle the Western views of dying. Because here in the West, we've got a very negative view of the idea of dying. In a lot of other places, such as, Mexico, Peru, the Middle East, China, a lot of those countries celebrate dying. And it's a beautiful thing and it's an amazing part of their culture. But for some reason, we're terrified of it. So Frederick wrote this play that takes the concept of loss and then puts it on the idea of gothic horror and sort of slice of life situational comedies. Have you ever seen Being Human, the TV
Possibly
show?
long, probably a long, long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Fred specifically has never watched Being Human because
Okay.
I read the script and he asked me to be a director for the show, and I read the script. And the show is about a ghost, a vampire, a werewolf, and a zombie, all housemates.
Yeah, that does ring a bell actually. A little bit.
And it's basically the exact same as a TV show. And the first thing I said to him when I read the script is, "Oh, this is really close. This is really similar to Being Human." And he goes, "I know. I've never watched it. Someone told me it sounded similar, and I've never watched it, so no one can say it's a copyright thing."
Dude, I remember it was the same when I did this little mini YouTube series
Mm.
um back in 2019, carried it through into 2020, 2021, and someone was like, "Oh, it's Split." And I'm like, "I've never seen this film. I don't know what you're talking about." And they explained what it was, and I was like, I guess, but the difference is mine is like all freehand, one camera guys mostly talking either directly to the camera or to like all the other people in his mind, and they're all represented with different characters. Whereas Split is a bit more. There are other people in this scenario watching
Mm.
him be him. So I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting
Yeah,
concept, death.
it is.
On
Um,
in a show, like how do you approach that? Maybe in like a, I mean,
what
I don't know. Is it
in like an entertaining way?
maybe? Well, I don't know. I
Well,
mean, it it strikes a chord with people, doesn't it? It's
of
quite a
course,
sensitive topic.
but also theatre is entertainment, you know, or at least a form of it. Um, and we still want people to come and watch this show and be entertained. You know, they're here to they're hopefully going to give us their money, and we're hopefully going to give them entertainment. But yeah, we sort of looked at the concept and looked at the idea, and we thought trying to explain the concept of death through creatures from stories that don't die, it makes it more manageable because it's taken so out of context. Um, you know, vampire can't die, werewolf can't die, zombie. The whole thing is that they're back from the dead, and ghosts are also come back from the dead. Um, so we had to sort of take this idea of death and just change it slightly. So for the character of Devon, played by the brilliant Felix Ramsden, um, his whole thing is wanting to pass on. It's a brilliant character. He was like a worker for a company that got bought out by Morrison's like some 30, 40 years ago. And he was a middle management. And he got the dream position that he wanted and then fell down the stairs the first day of the job.
Sorry.
Um,
That's brilliant.
but yeah, it's like, but so he obviously comes back as a ghost and he's got to fill out his life's purpose because he didn't fill out in life, so he's now haunting the house and trying to do his life purpose. Um, but that you know, instead of the concept of death for him, it's the concept of finding the reason he was put on this earth, and then once he's completed it, passing on. And we're touching difficult topics, but in a way that is digestible and hopefully entertaining. Um, I mean, it goes for every other character as well. I mean, you take the vampire character. She's a devout Christian. That's her thing. So a lot of the times she wants to be able to hold a cross in her hand, or things like, oh, have holy water in the house, and she can't, and that's a struggle for her. And she also refuses to drink blood. So because she refuses to drink blood, there is an element of, um, you know, rather than the concept of dying, it's the concept of giving up on something in yourself, like losing a belief, losing faith in something. Um, which can be that part of your life dying off, and there's an element of mourning to it. Um, the only character that really, really has to deal with the concept of death is the character of Finn, who's a werewolf. And throughout the production, they're slowly turning as like a sort of disease. It's getting worse, sort of stage by stage. Um, and they're the only ones that are still alive, really. Vampires are already dead, as are zombies and ghosts. But a werewolf is a human still alive, and they're sort of choosing. Well, do they turn, or do they deal with the consequences?
Was there anything that you and everyone involved in the project learned about death, maybe that surprised you in the writing of this play?
About death, weirdly not. Um, we've learned more about ourselves and more about living life through this production than any other.
What did you
Um,
learn?
just the value of everything, how little things can change entire situations massively, how people matter in every degree and level. Um, I work in a very holistic way as a director. I'm very against a lot of the mainstream ideas of directing. I don't believe that people should have to dig up their own trauma to feel sad. I don't, that sort of thing. I think it's a really toxic part of the industry, and unfortunately, the most popular. Um, so I try and work in a way that empowers the actors through the story, and then because of that, we learn such brilliant things about ourselves, about each other as well. Um, you know, our actors are discovering things about themselves, either physical things, physical changes, They might have played a character for so long that they start inhabiting the same traits as them, and we start to notice these things, or even little mental changes that the longer we build these characters' friendships and these characters' relationships with ourselves, the more it mirrors our own life. And ultimately, as a director, that's what I want, um, to mirror to mirror life. You know.
Do you not think though that like if it's too similar to your own life, it's no longer the character anymore? Because I feel like this is a big problem with actors is when they're not fully exploring this new character. Like I've seen it even in some of the best actors of our time. Like they sometimes have like these mannerisms that they just carry into everything, and maybe it can't be helped. I don't
Oh,
know.
the Ryan Reynolds effect. That's what I call it. Ryan Reynolds is really, really good at playing Ryan Reynolds. You know, he's
Okay.
sure he's great. He's a great Deadpool, he was Green Lantern once. But he's really good at playing Ryan Reynolds. You know.
But that's more a comment on being one dimensional actor. That's not what I mean. That's
Oh,
more
sorry. What do you mean? What are you trying to?
well, carrying like traits and mannerisms and certain things into every single role as opposed to just kind of completely immersing yourself in a new role. Like,
Of
okay,
course.
if say Johnny Depp plays a character, it's going to be totally different from anything else he's done.
Yes,
No,
I
always.
agree with what you're saying there. Um,
But don't get me wrong, like the Ryan Reynolds thing is a good example of that
mm,
because you're right. Like as soon as you said that, there was like at least six roles that he's done that popped into my head, and they're all similar. Like from the way he looks at people, the way he laughs, his sarcasm, just everything. It's all in every single role.
yeah, I'd say, like I said, I sort of don't use the traditional notions of directing.
Well, what do
I
you do
don't.
differently then?
Well, I don't have my actors immerse themselves. Um, I believe that if you watch an actor, sure they can be feeling all of the feelings themselves, but ultimately, what you're watching is an actor feeling the emotions of the character. You're not watching the character, you know. Um, so there's a bit of psychology that goes into the way that I work. Um, it's very anti-Freudian, and it's a lot to talk about in a podcast. But to sort of give you the long and short of it, um, every baby will always cry when it's hungry. Every baby will always laugh when it's entertained. There is something that is about that, and there are specific things that humans do that is universal. We all laugh when we're happy and cry when we're sad, and we all have these basic emotions. Um, and there's certain psychological tricks we can use to bring those out. Have you ever tried that thing when you were younger? Maybe if a sibling asks you to lie down and they press on your stomach and you um, fake a laugh. And if you have your stomach pressed on, you start actually genuinely laughing because your diaphragm starts spasming. So you can learn to laugh, really genuinely laugh, by just learning to control those muscles in your stomach. And even things like you can learn how to cry on command without the need of emotions and without the need of anything like that by going through the same body processes that cause you to cry. You know, I teach my actors to sort of maybe they need to remember a moment where they have cried, not to bring back the same feelings, but to work out what their body did. People often they wipe their eyes, they touch their face a lot, and their breathing gets quicker and heavier. And then often you do the same motions, and people just fall straight into it. It's how psychopaths do it. Funny enough, genuinely, what psychopaths do, is they often study and watch what people do emotionally, and then copy it. It's the exact same process of a psychopath. Um, which I don't know if that's better or worse than the current state of acting affairs, but there you go. That's my process.
Oh yeah, I've only ever managed to cry through the use of like audio aids. So like I'll just listen to like some super depressing shit, get myself in that headspace,
Yeah.
and then push it out that way.
I was awful for it. For a long time I could never do it. I used to, and this is the God honest truth, I used to keep at airports you can buy like travel sized bottles of mouthwash.
Yeah.
I used to find like the strongest smelling mouthwash, like the mintiest flavor I could,
Oof.
and keep a travel sized bottle in my pocket. And then when I wanted to cry on a scene, I would just hold it up to my eyes and the menthol would get my eyes watering and then I'd go on because I couldn't do it. I couldn't find a system that works. Um, but I've found this one and it works for me, so I can't complain. But that was my little trick. That was my um, yeah.
You mentioned the current state of acting affairs. So clearly you got some opinions. I want to hear them. What's your issue with modern
Um,
acting?
with modern acting, it's not even modern acting. It's the I'd probably say everything post 1950.
Christ.
It's a
Wow.
long
Okay.
time. Yeah, that's how far my opinion stretched. So I was lucky to be classically trained.
Mhm.
Um, and you learn about certain practitioners when you're classically trained and how they work. I personally follow the work of Michael Chekhov and someone who's still alive, Philippe Gollier. If you ever want to look at some really weird stuff, then he's the man for it. But most of the acting world follows one of two people, either Lee Strasberg or Stella Adler. Now, Stella Adler's the lesser of two evils, but Lee Strasberg, he invented what is called the method acting. And method acting, the more you look into it, the more you realize how much of a toxic and mentally destroying system it is. Um, I mean, it was all originally based on a Russian director's work, a guy called Stanislavski, who did the work of naturalism to make things feel natural and real. Lee Strasberg came over from America into Russia and learnt the system, and took it and rewrote it for himself. Um, Invented the method. Now, sure, it might have worked for himself. Maybe he had maybe he was okay with bringing up difficult memories and trauma and reliving them for the sake of a role. But that is a really harmful thing to do, especially with everyone has different life experiences. You know, my my way of bringing up my own trauma might be different to yours. Um, and also there's proof that it's I say doesn't work. In quotation marks. There is proof of its ineffectiveness. You watch films like Alien, or some of those films where you have American actors and British actors together. Um, you know, there was the bit where I can't remember the name of the actor was. He was playing the robot in Alien. Can't remember his name now, but he was a British actor, and all of the American actors would go and ask him, so "How do you do it? How do you find the way of becoming a robot?" And the British actor says, "Well, I just take a piece of myself and I throw it away every morning."
Wow.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
I
and
get it. I get
that
it.
slowly over time he had this robot idea, but we don't have any memories about being a robot. So how do we have how? That's why American actors often can't play monsters or villains or things like that because they might not have, oh well, in your own memory, you might not have committed an atrocity. That's why British actors always play villains
It's
because
interesting shout
British,
there.
yeah, British classical training. We follow a lot of other different systems. One being the Russian original naturalism.
I mean,
And
it's interesting. Like I never had any formal training.
mm,
I just jumped straight into it. And I quickly realized that I was following the Stanislavski method or
mm,
Strasberg. And what I've learned about method acting over the years is that there are levels to it, though. So in its most
Of
extreme sense,
course.
like you're spot on, it does get like a bit too far. I think the whole, you know, you hear like people like Jared Leto going crazy on set and sending people like dead animals in the
Yeah.
post,
Well, here's the
like nah.
thing. I don't think Jared Leto is a method actor. I think he's an asshole. That's
Maybe.
because
I mean, it's hard. It's okay in our
uh,
industries
yeah.
of your music and acting and everything. Like you do get these personalities, these people who, because they get treated a certain way every single day, they expect that from everyone, and
Of
a lot of
course.
people will, you know, will allow it. Like, I mean, even when I do like hospitality gigs to make ends meet, and I get told like, oh, we got a VIP and we got a celebrity and we have to treat them special. I'm like, no, we
Yeah.
don't. Like, I'm going to treat them like how I treat everyone else. They're just a person to me. I don't care that they're
Mm.
famous. I don't care that you say that they're a big deal. To me, they're just, and like every celebrity I've ever met, it's very rare that someone has that kind of special aura where you're like, oh wow. But then I've had that with people that aren't famous, who aren't,
Mm.
you know, a big deal or whatever. Like, sorry, I just have strong opinions about this. And when it comes to like our industry, and often the worst attitudes tend to be from the people that aren't even successful. They're just assholes, as you say. But people that are on that top tier, it's because they get told all the time that they're the greatest of all time, right?
Yes.
And they might have legitimately had some really good roles. Obviously, I think with Jared Leto in his early career, he had some really really good performances. But
Also his music was great. I will say that I do enjoy his music. Um, as much as his acting I disagree with and his stuff like that, but
I just think with the whole method acting argument, there's people I've seen who can do it without demanding things on set, and then there's other people who can't. Like I think Gary Oldman is able to switch it on and off in the moment, and I've always kind of been like that. Like when I do use method acting on set, I need a minute to kind of get into it and stuff. So like I do need like not necessarily space, but I, you know, if people are being like loud and chatting, being all
mm,
annoying, I'm like, look, shut the fuck up, kind of thing. You know, I wouldn't
yeah,
say it like that, but I'd be
no, of
like, hey, can
course.
I get some right? Um, but in terms of like weird shit, like, oh, I'm not gonna eat with you guys. I'm gonna dress like Abe Lincoln for the whole time I'm on set, and you know, and I love Daniel Day Lewis, but just I hear
Yeah.
stories like that, and it's like I don't know. I kind of get it, and I don't get it. Like
Mm.
it is intense. I will say that when you're actually using method acting, I mean, you know, it's a lot. Like you're drawing from real emotion, and it's unpredictable.
Mm.
That's why you see actors sometimes break down after scenes because they're just tapping into real shit. Like it's
Yeah. I
I don't
mean,
know.
I would suggest I can't remember the name of the book. It's somewhere in this apartment that I live in. There's a book that I'll suggest to you, and it's a 14-page book. It's tiny, but it is genuinely, in my opinion, the the sort of the limiter of that sort of, because you're saying there's like levels to it. Um, it just takes the edge off it a little bit for me. For me, I think it's, I believe in prevention rather than cure in terms of something like method acting. I don't believe it, it's a system people use. I just don't personally agree with it. There are other versions of it that are similar that I do agree with. Like I said, Stella Adler's um, work, I think, is better. Um, look at Alison Hodge. Look at I mean, someone who is absolutely brilliant that is still around and still working even today. Peter Brook is immense, and a man named Yoshida Ida, a Japanese fellow, who he wrote The Invisible Actor, which is all about the method and naturalism, but comes from the concept of not having to take up and not having to build an entire world, you know. And that often leads to people demanding the world. You know, he says to be invisible, be an invisible actor. You know, you're there so the character can be seen, but be an invisible actor.
Yeah, I mean, it's whenever I've looked at like different actors' methods and stuff, like whatever it may be, I feel like the end result is kind of the key. Like one of the reasons I got into acting was that I just saw like so many people on screen and in shows, and I remember thinking like, look, I'm not a trained actor, but I know I can do better than that.
Mm,
I don't buy you. I don't buy you as this person. You are like that, and to me, that in essence is what acting is it's the difference between someone playing this person, playing this character, to pretending to be this person, and
mm,
someone really becoming this character.
yeah.
You know, and everything. It's everything. It's the physical traits you throw into the role, eye contact, your mannerisms, the way you say things.
Mm,
You know, like you you do have to try and remove yourself as much as possible from that character, and that's difficult to do because there's just like
of
we
course.
we have natural ways of doing things, don't we, as human beings? Like we just
Yeah. And I think that's why I like alternative methods
mm,
to acting because it's as humans we you know we might have a million different ways of doing things. Sure, the end result is still the same. We want to fully embody this character and really give it life, but um, I like giving my actors options. You know, when I for when you die, um, I really sort of wanted to find what works for each actor. And they're all amazing actors. They are phenomenal. Some of the best actors I've worked with. Um, Michael J. Brand is immense. I mean, he plays a character that doesn't make sense. There's a character in the play called Laszlo, and he's we don't know what he is. He's old. He's older than sort of like thousands of years old. He's been around forever, and he's just kind of this old blind sort of like sooth speaker. This sort of he tells the future and he does all that sort of stuff. Um, and obviously, Michael is a brilliant guy. We worked together, and we found accents that are really old and really sort of like, we did research into find an accent that's sort of over 3,000 years old and tried that and see if that worked. And you know, sort of how would someone who's kind of lived forever, how would they move about their life? And we looked at the character's blind, so we spent some time being blind as well, and truly embodying that. Um,
yeah, it's crazy how an exercise like that can really help with you. That sounds like an obvious thing to say, but like actually becoming that. Like I did a role once where it was unintentional, but I had to be in eye makeup for like most of the day, like five,
mm,
6 hours. So I was blind. I had to have people walk me outside to have a cigarette, walk me to the bathroom,
yeah.
everything. And it really humble. It was depressing. I remember being like feeling very alone,
Mm,
and I wouldn't say scared, but just it was like quite cold and dark, and
mm,
I was very. Anytime someone would come and talk to me, I felt relieved. I felt like not alone for a minute, and I
yeah.
don't know, it was an interesting experience. I think.
Yeah, I really try to come at that exercise with as much positivity as I can. And so I always involve um, games into whatever I do. If I had to sum up my acting style or my directing style, it's everything is a game. And if you ever get the chance to speak to one of my actors, which if please do, they're all brilliant. Um, they will say that I'm always asking them to find a game to play on the stage. Um, that's one of my things. Is it keep because it keeps them alive on the stage. I have an example of something I did. I was during my drama school training. I had was playing Romeo and Romeo and Juliet, and one of the games as a whole cast. We hadn't told the director this. One of the games we were playing as a whole cast was to see how many times we had a piece of garlic that we'd found in one of the kitchens, and we said, how many times can we pass this garlic around a member of the cast as we went through without the audience noticing? And so there's a bit in the ballroom scene. We were all dancing, and I'd slipped a piece of garlic into a woman's dress, and then sort of a bit of a war started at that point. So there's a fight scene with me and Mercutio, and we must have passed that piece of garlic around maybe 7 or 8 times, just by someone would get punched and you'd drop it down a sleeve or without noticing. And it was always, it sort of build this sort of like the Montagues and the Capulets. They always seemed like they were on edge and always looking at each other and always trying to find trouble because we were trying to work out who had the piece of garlic. And I got my comeuppance for dropping a piece of garlic in a lady's dress. The lady playing Juliet, obviously she's laying dead, and I do and with a kiss I die. And I go to kiss Juliet, and she spits the piece of garlic into my mouth that she'd had in the whole time. And obviously, very suddenly, having a piece of garlic spit into your mouth, my eyes started watering, and I was like, "All right, I'll use it." And I just started weeping from that because and I died, and it's one of the best reviews I've ever got. Um,
That's
all because
genius.
all because someone spat a piece of garlic in my mouth. And it's that's the thing. I don't want to take credit for it. It's not genius. We're playing games that keep us alive as actors. So often I tell them to um often I'll tell them during rehearsals to play a game of tag or play a game of catch with a prop, any prop, whether it's a chair or anything. Just like keep yourselves alive in the rehearsals because you're going to be doing the same scene over and over again, and it's going to die. So if you can keep yourselves alive as actors, the characters will stay alive themselves. And often, then sometimes something comes out of it that's really beautiful. Like I said, the garlic thing, something comes out of it. We'd realized that there's a moment where we were playing a game of tag in one of the scenes, and there's one moment where one of the actors really feels cornered in the scene, and it just so happened that in the game of tag, um, someone was tagged, and they had cornered the actor in that exact moment, and it was just like, you can't write this stuff. It's sometimes magical things happen, and sometimes they don't.
I mean,
Uh,
I think it helps to keep things light. I mean, I always try and do that on set, is keep things light, keep things fun, keep everyone invested, and try and push this like collaborative process. I
of
feel like
course.
that quite works quite well.
Yeah. I urge you try this. As long as all your other actors are consenting, make their lives a misery. But but on the condition that they can make your life a misery in return. And suddenly there is this magical thing that happens. Because one, it builds chemistry between the actors. I mean, you might have to walk onto a film set and this is your husband you've had for many years, and you know each other love. You need to find that instantly. So as soon as you get past the barrier of humiliation, um, then anything is possible. It's you watch actors who are meant to be lovers, and they barely go near each other. Like they barely give themselves a hug. And it's like, come on, you're meant to have loved each other for years. Surely you'd embrace each other, and you know, you have this, unless there is an issue with the actor where they're not comfortable with personal space and all stuff like that, and that's completely fine.
You
But
have to
like,
immerse yourself, something like that. Like I
yeah,
remember one time I did a sort of film thing. It never got used in the end, but I got all the footage, and I just met this girl, just met her, and they were like, right, you have to be a couple that's been together for years.
hmm,
And I just turned and looked at her, she looked at me, and we're like, right, let's quickly talk about this. And, it was, I was like, right, are you comfortable with this? She was like, yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just throw us. And she was brilliant. She was so easy to work with. It made it so much easier. And there was a bit of attraction there as well, which I think helps. You should feed that into the role. But it's tough, and I see people doing that, and I'm like, look, if you're gonna make this believable, you have to go all in.
Yeah,
Like,
you do. You do have to go all in. Um, what is your opinion? Other that you've an interesting question for me. What is your opinion on sort of like? Do you think actors who their characters are romantically engaged? Do you think that often sparks real feelings if you're not careful, or um, because that's something I've never experienced. Because like I said, I work on a disconnect from my characters. So coming from yourself, who does work sort of through a method point of view, have you ever sort of had to be romantically involved with someone and then the feelings sort of come through afterwards?
it's
Or
interesting.
do you think you were always attracted to them, but it was a job, you know?
What's interesting about that is I've had it a handful of times, and the first few times there was definitely chemistry there.
Mm.
I could see myself dating them, but I was also fully aware that this is a performance, filming.
Mm.
They are acting as much as I am. I've always, like I said, I subscribe to Stanislavski, so I try to like throw realness into things, and I'm not necessarily like thinking about them specifically. I'm just kind of embracing the feeling in the moment. Like, oh,
Yes.
this woman is touching me. Oh, I can feel this. That's nice. I like this feeling. I like,
Mm.
if you look intensely into anyone's eyes for long enough, it starts to get very intimate. It just
Yeah.
just does. It's just because you don't hold eye contact that long
No.
normally. You look away, whatever. Um, Honestly, try it. Like, for anyone listening, like try it with people just for fun. Just like look intently in their
Yeah.
eyes for a little bit and see
I'll
how it
happily stare into
changes.
I'll happily stare into the camera for a few minutes if people wanna sort of let me just sort of
It changes the energy. It really does. It's intense. It is intense. The most
Yeah.
recent film I did actually, there was like I felt like I don't know this for sure, but I felt like the lead actress felt a little bit uncomfortable with me,
Mm.
but not like in the sense that I was doing anything to make her feel uncomfortable. It's just she had a husband, and it was like, to the best of my knowledge, either the first role she's ever done or she doesn't normally act. Like we were very collaborative across the set, but like the rest of us have been doing this a long time, so
Mm.
for me, I'm very comfortable just being thrown into a situation and being told, right, you two have to like be a romantic couple. To me, that's another day at the office. I think for her, I could tell she was uncomfortable, like in scenes where we had to embrace each other. Maybe I'm caressing her arms, bringing her close, staring into her eyes. She's definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it was more to do with like the personal space thing. I could tell that like anyone who isn't someone close to her, like she feels uncomfortable about that. But I do think that with acting, if you're going to do romantic roles, you have to know what you're signing up for. Don't get me wrong. I think that these things should be discussed beforehand. You know, um, like it shouldn't just be sprung on you. Like, oh, now we're doing a nude scene. Like, no, like
Yeah.
this gets beforehand. Every time, anytime I've ever worked with an actress on set and we've done like an intimate scene, I've always spoken to them beforehand and been like, are you okay if I do this? Are you cool with this? How do
Mm.
you feel about this? Good example is my music video for my song Dreaming of Loving You.
Yes.
I got a friend of mine that I work with to star in it with me, and literally every scene I was like, right, here's my idea for this. are you comfortable if I do this? And she's like, yeah. Like, she was so easy to work with. It was like,
Mm.
just it was perfect. If you go and watch the music video, you'll see what looks like genuine chemistry, and like we got some fantastic scenes. Like a lot of like the close-up shots of her and her eyes and the eye contact was perfect. When we like held hands and stuff like that and caressing and stuff, it felt
Mm.
genuine. And yeah, it turned out she'd studied film before, and she knew what she was doing. So it's like, well, of course.
There you go.
But that's I think the difference. I think for most actors and actresses, it is just like another day at the office, and some people are more able to jump in and out of it than others. But look, I think going back to your original question, like I think it comes down to that. If you're in a room with someone for long enough and intimate with them for long enough, things will probably happen. It's just
Yeah.
human chemistry.
Um, Speaking of romance, uh, in the play When You Die, directed by me and Frederick Torrance. So a big part of the story is a sapphic romance. Um, and it's always, um, I think it's always brilliant when you, as a director, for sort of like, obviously you've spoken on your perspectives as an actor, and I share the same views. Um, but it's so different as a director to sort of like, because you're watching it from an outside view, you're sort of going, you can see the chemistry, but how can we get the audience to see that as well?
Mm.
Um, I mean, um, sort of sharing that sort of awkward sort of um, flirtatiousness, because well, it's the awkward flirtatiousness of an undead Christian and a werewolf. It's like it's a bit odd. They've both got issues with themselves that they're dealing with, and you have this little moment of chemistry. Um, and so there's these beautiful scenes that happen, and then I'll do something stupid, like I'll say like throw in a dick joke somewhere, and I'll I'll do that to ruin the moment, because I like to sort of, I don't want to give my audience everything. The whole story is kind of we involve this beautiful sapphic romance, and I don't want to give the audience all of it in one go. They deserve to have little bits and then have it ruined for them. Uh,
I will say, like, I I've made this known. My audience knows this. I am not a fan of theatre. Never have been.
really,
Yeah,
you always a film
probably.
guy.
Yeah, probably never will be.
What
Um,
what is it that turns you off from it? I'm not trying to convert you, but I just want to know, like, what is it that you just doesn't work for you?
I don't like this performance pandering to the crowd thing. It bothers me. I'm not saying that every theatre production is like that. I've seen good ones. I just can't get behind it. Maybe it's because I grew up with film. And here's the thing: I know a lot about this from the historical perspective. So I know that obviously theatre acting was where acting comes from. I've said this on the show before. If you go and watch early film, early cinema, the all of the actors are theatre actors, and they don't really know how to tone it down for
Yeah.
film.
Well, they
Like
say
they're
Someone like Marlon Brando was the first real film actor. I mean, we'd had films for what, some 20 years before that, but
Mhm.
they say he was the first film actor.
Yeah, because he by that point they'd learned to sort of tone it down, and mic sophistication had increased, so they didn't have to do see like you've seen so many old movies, and again, I'm repeating this now for probably the third, fourth time on the show. Go back and watch those old films and look at how many of those scenes are in like a living room or a connecting room with like a flower basket in the middle of the room, and they just walk around it and like that's where the mic is hidden,
Mm.
and there'll be a lot of announcing across the room, right? Because that's what you're used to as a theatre actor: is you have to make yourself known, you have to be heard, you have to be constantly seen, you know. And that's what goes through my head when you were talking about that before, because with film work, you can cheat a lot of things. You can frame things to look a certain way.
Yes.
So much of the art is in how something is shot. It's not just how the actor does something, but you can kind of work together to achieve and elicit certain things.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know. Maybe it's just like seeing things a certain way. I really respect the craft of theater acting. I actually consider them to be two completely different disciplines. I know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, they're the same." Da, 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 da. I'm like, no, 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 no. That for me, it's like a specific style of acting, its own discipline, and it has like I know now. Obviously, like having training is important with something like that. But I know as a film actor, TV actor, I couldn't just walk into theater and just do it. Like it wouldn't work. I'd have
Yeah.
to completely change everything I'm doing in order to make it work.
I do completely agree with you. I think, admittedly, I mean, well, it's due to the fact that theatre sort of came first. Theatre acting equips you with the skills that gives you film acting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is by no means saying that film acting is any way inferior.
Just
I
different.
think I think in film acting there is so much more subtlety to everything. I mean, the idea of micro expressions is from film acting. Um, you know,
And you don't really capture that on stage. That's kind of the thing. It's like there's no way of honing in on that.
mm, I
Whereas with
think
film, there is.
there are certain people that can do it, but those are people like Patrick Stewart and Serene McKellen, the
I was
real
gonna say the,
classics.
the hand things he's spoken about before, where he's
Judy Dench and things like that. But they have such a master of their craft. They've been doing it all their lives. I mean, it's so interesting. I say recently, it was 2023. I watched Surrey and McKellen play Falstaff in Henry IV. Um, and it was Henry IV Part One and Part Two. It was a 4.5 hour show.
jeez.
And you're watching him, and he's pushing 90. You know, and you're watching him, and he's got more energy and more what's the word that I'm looking for now? He's got more stamina than some of these actors that are fresh out of drama school, 20 something, And I think that's insane. I think that's what theatre gives you because for me, theatre is a marathon. And
Well, it's why you get into something, though, isn't it?
yeah,
Like
but film is a sprint because that's my opinion.
I don't know
In,
about
in
that.
That's my. I mean, in terms of the acting process alone, don't get me wrong. The full process of making a film is a complete slog. I do not envy um, filmmakers. I think they are some of the most hardworking people on the planet. And I don't, I don't have the time for it. I really don't. I want to spend 4 weeks in a rehearsal room and push out a theatre show. I don't have the time to do pre-production and editing and even cinematography. I know nothing about cinematography. I know my audience is that way, and that's all I know, and that's all I need to know. And there's a beauty to that. But yeah, I before I was a theatre actor, I was a stunt actor for films. That was my thing. So I guess I've had a little bit of both worlds. But that would be, I'd turn up to set, I'd get beaten up, and then I'd reset, then I get beaten up, and I'd reset. And it's that sort of like you push everything into a take, and then you take a breath. And then you push everything into a take, and then you take a breath. But the camera captures everything.
Mhm.
Even, the micro expressions and the every single little thing. I was on the set of the Batman film,
Mhm.
2022 Batman with Robert Pattinson, and that was a brilliant shoot. I played one of the Riddler's goons during the end of the film. Um, Getting beaten up by Robert Pattinson is sits firmly in my portfolio. It's often the first thing I say when I walk through the door. Not even to a casting agent, just to like friends and family to gloat. But um, Yeah, no, that was an interesting shoot because that was they had surprisingly long takes for a lot of that shoot.
Yeah,
Um,
action films are so boring to watch being filmed. I've been part of
yeah,
films like that, and it's the process is cool, but yeah, seeing the 40th take of something is like, oh, for fuck's sake.
yeah. Well, I have a few friends that had worked on 1917. They played some German soldiers in 1917, and they said watching them is a different story. That feel because that's the they said it's the worst of both worlds because it is the slog of theatre acting where you're in it for hours and hours and hours, and also all the difficulties that filmmaking brings of like cheating scenes and setting up areas, and that was all. It was all meant to look like one take in 1917, and they'd film for hours on end. Not just scene for scene, but sort of they go through maybe a third of the entire film in a single take, and you've got to be in it and do it. And you're not in a cushy little rehearsal room with air conditioning. You're out in. They filmed it in Normandy in
Wow.
the winter, and it was cold and it was awful, and everyone was depressed. It was like, but they made something utterly brilliant. I mean, that film is a masterpiece.
There it goes. I mean, it's the sacrifice for the art, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, anytime I go on set or anytime I get to be part of anything, I throw myself into it completely. And I think that this is why I have a respect for theatre. Like, despite me not personally enjoying it, I respect it and always will. Because for me, the three disciplines are acting, like film acting, theatre
Mm-hmm.
acting, voice acting.
Yeah.
And they're all completely different and they all require different things. But there are qualities within each that all of the disciplines require. Like they all, it's weird. There is crossover, but I have noticed that a lot of people have got into the industry and they just care about like whatever, like money, fame. They don't really like take it seriously. Like I remember seeing an old clip of Christopher Lee talking about his experiences in his later years, and he said that like too many of the younger actors coming through are like just all they care about is being seen by the camera. Like where's my face on the camera? And it's like you're not acting. You just care about that. Which
Yeah.
like the camera will catch you. Don't worry. Like focus on your craft. Focus on being the best you can be. You
Yeah.
know.
But also Christopher Lee was nuts.
Sure.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a man that needs a film about him just in general. You know. I mean, do you know much about Christopher Lee's life?
I
How insane
know.
it was.
I know that he was in a heavy metal band in his later years.
Yeah.
I
So
know that I think he either had actually been stabbed in his earlier years, so he knew what it was like, or
yeah.
he already at least seen someone have a
Well,
sword thrown through their back. So he
well,
explained that to
no.
Peter Jackson one time.
Yeah. He's one of the founding members of the SAS.
I didn't know that. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, he was part of the SAS in World War Two, part
There
of
it is.
counterintelligence, and he was like an actual, like he's probably the closest thing to James Bond that we have. Like he's suave, he's um, he was a member of the military. He also has changed our perceptions on horror. He was the
Mm.
first man who played Dracula. You know, he is Dracula. Um,
I loved him in The Wicker Man. I have to say,
yeah,
I
and he's
thought that was
brilliant in The
such
Wicker Man.
phenomenal.
And then, he has the balls to go to Peter Jackson and go, "Have you ever been stabbed, Peter? Well, let me explain how it goes." Really sort of like, using classical sword fighting training in Star Wars, and all that sort of jazz. It's like the man was immense. You should have a film about him. And there's a few people. I've got a list of people that deserve films for themselves. One of them is Christopher Lee,
Who
um,
else?
Ernest Hemingway,
Hmm.
because his life was insane. Um, Imagine Christopher Lee's life just 10 times more interesting. Um, and the other had already been made. It was Serena Williams' father.
Mm.
I'm not a massive tennis fan. I just knew a lot of things about how strange his sort of life was and how hard people push for things, not for themselves but for their family. And I respected that.
I think a film on the Jackson family would be pretty interesting. I know they're doing a Michael Jackson one, but I think specifically the Jackson family, I think there's a lot of
What wasn't there a
interesting
Jackson
things.
family film? Wasn't there a or unless
Was
I'm
there?
misremembering, it might have been part of a Michael Jackson thing.
Well, I'd like to know about like, like how he pushed them or like on
Yes,
stage from a young age, the
he did
father
push
and
them to the limit. He did really,
yeah,
really sort of throw them out there.
obviously like the how big they became, how huge they were. I think that would be quite interesting.
Yeah. Um yeah, that'd be very interesting. I don't know, is there anything you'd sort of like you'd want to because I can see the guitar in the back and um I'm going to pretend that I've not looked into any of your work and say I'm assuming you're a musician as well as a performer. Judging by the music videos and stuff like that. Um, do you think there's any sort of like? Sorry, my brain is not working at the minute. I'm trying to pull this question in for you. Um, Between sort of like music and performing, is there any sort of like similarities between that? Are there any sort of different parts where the worlds sort of collide a bit, excluding things like music videos because you can act in a music video, but sort of like the process, I guess.
When you're on stage, when you're performing and you learn to let go
Mm.
and just truly live in the moment, feel, don't think, just feel. That is the same as acting when you let go and you feel the role and you really feel the emotions. It's the
Mm.
same exact feeling. It's one of the reasons why I became an actor was because I recognized like, oh, this is like being a musician. It's not the same, but it's similar feeling.
Well, for being a musician, is it still? I imagine, obviously, you're embracing the character, but as a musician, is it still you, or are you just part of the music at that point? You're just the energy and the atmosphere and that. Like,
Well, ironically, I think it's like the conversation we've had earlier where every person's a bit different. Like
okay, yeah,
some people are playing a character. If you look at someone like say Lady Gaga, that's a character. She's playing
of course,
characters.
yeah,
If you look at someone like I don't know, Louis Capaldi, that's just a guy singing his heart out,
yeah,
and laying it all out on the line. I guess what I've been told about my singing is that it's very like passionate, like it's like I throw myself into it. And for me, I don't know any different. I think if you're going to sing about heartbreak, like you should really sing, you know. Same with acting. Like if there's a scene and it's a breakup scene, I need to believe that you're really breaking up. You can't just
yeah,
be like, "Oh, I'm so sad. This is awful." It's like, no, you'd be devastated. You'd be just silly, emotional, reckless, whatever. Like you throw
yeah.
logic out the window. I guess is what I'm saying.
You
But
do throw logic out the window. You really do.
short answer, yes, there is crossover. But I guess it depends on what type of musician you are and
Mhm.
what you're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah, because I'm now sort of dipping my toes into music.
Cool,
Um, I played jazz. No,
nice,
no,
hard.
I studied jazz piano I've studied that for years. That was just something I did for myself. But I'm now sort of exploring other means. Um, I recently so my partner's left-handed. My boyfriend Benjamin, who's wonderful. Um, he's left-handed, and he's recently realized he plays better in a right-handed guitar, even though he's left-handed. So we bought a new guitar, a right-handed guitar recently, and I did the Jimi Hendrix thing of
Yeah.
restringing a left-handed guitar right-handed.
Okay.
And I've got it. It's currently sat over there on the other side of the room. but I'm now learning how to play a right-handed, left-handed guitar.
That's such a mind fuck.
It's such a mind, yeah. It's it's exactly the same. The whammy bars the wrong way round, and the sort of the pickups are in a bit of a weird place where your hand is, but um, it's no different from a guitar, and it's I don't know. I like the weird stuff. I wouldn't be doing a play about zombies and vampires and werewolves if I didn't enjoy the weird stuff. I enjoy the weird stuff, you know. Um, you know, stringing a guitar the opposite way around just to because it makes a different sound and it sounds it sounds different. It picks up differently. Um, I like doing the odd plays. I've got a casting call soon enough where I'll be playing a zombie. Now you know those sort of crappy sort of American B movies that were like um, the zombie apocalypse happening and Adolf Hitler's at the heart of it. It's the exact same concept, but the main villain is Margaret Thatcher. I just think that's brilliant. And I saw the casting call on Spotlight, and I was like, "Yep, I'm doing that. I'm auditioning for that because that is hilarious. Even if it's awful, I want to do it. I want to see zombie Margaret Thatcher."
Do you struggle as a director going into a play that isn't yours and performing?
In what sense? Like an ownership point of view, or
Well,
like a
you have zero control. You know, you're being told what to do as opposed to having control or at least influence in how things go.
oh, so as a director to a play that isn't mine, or as an actor to a play that isn't mine.
It doesn't make a difference. I mean, if you're an actor going, oh, I see what you're saying now. Um,
Because so I didn't write When You Die. That is entirely, Fred wrote it and is producing it and is putting.
that's collaboration. Yeah, I guess I
Yeah.
mean an actor going into a play.
As an actor going into a play, well, I had a brilliant director friend of mine, a great man called Bill Hopkinson, a real giant in the industry. Um, he said to me because I asked him the same problem. I said sometimes I work with directors and I feel like I've got no ownership of this. I feel like I'm giving him this character, I'm giving this thing, and it feels like I wasn't, I had my problems anyway. And he turned around and he told me that it is the freedom of the actor to bring the character whichever way they want. It's the director's job to guide them to fit the vision.
Hmm.
And I've lived that. And sometimes you work with directors and they sort of they kind of lock you down into one box. But it's your freedom there is then whatever little holes in that box there are is you can play your freedom to that. Um,
I think the director decides the freedom level. Like I've had directors who've been made it clear they don't want any input from me, and like I'm the sort of guy that I'll come on set or I'll come into the production and I will do my thing.
hmm.
I will listen to what you're saying and try to make that happen. But I'll be like, okay, but what if we try this? Or I have this idea, we do this. Or
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying, but what about this?
so
Yeah.
that's how I work a lot. I often try and treat my actors as directors themselves, because they have autonomy of the. I mean, they're the ones making the character.
Mm.
Um, I've also been told that it's um, the actor's job is to what's the right word? Um, to just to give and keep giving. They give you a character idea, and then it's the director's job to see that thing that you're being given and either use it or throw it away and ask for something else. Like I said, some
Yeah, I
directors
get
they
that.
you know okay, it's not my job to as an actor to fit this character into the world and fit them into a scene and work out how they're going to work. I can just go, listen, you know, as one of my actors actually, Michael J. Brand. He says, I am like strawberry ice cream. If that's the flavor you want, here I am. That's my flavor. If you want chocolate ice cream or caramel or whatever, vanilla, I don't, that's not me. But as an actor, what flavor I can give you is strawberry ice cream, and I can give you that really, really well. You know?
Well, okay, but this is an interesting point. do you not, does a director not deserve adaptable actors? Is that not the whole point? If you
Of
just come and
course,
you go, I've got this one idea, and it's like, well, I don't like your idea, then it's like, well, I should find someone else then, shouldn't I?
of course, but I think what I mean is from like not as a character, as an actor.
Sure.
I'm saying like here are the skills that I have.
Hmm.
I'm gonna show like I'm like as an actor, I have a toolkit
Hmm.
of different techniques. I guess as
Well, okay. I'll add to this as well.
yeah.
If it's like, because this is the whole point of auditioning and reviewing
Mm,
someone, isn't it? Like you look at what they've got to offer. So if you're giving me this idea you've got and I don't like it, but I know that you can do more than that, and I want you to do this other thing that I
then
want,
then yeah, go for it.
that's what I'm saying. It's like
Right.
if the actor's like, well, this is what I do, and it's like, yeah, but I know you can do this,
Mm,
so give me this.
yeah. Um. No. Yeah. I think as long as an actor goes out there and goes, "Here's the skills that I have, and here's what I can do for you." Um. If a director sees something new, and they both discover something new, that's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying don't do that. I think what I'm saying is I don't appreciate directors that lock you in a box.
Sure, yeah,
that's,
same.
that's what I'm saying. And I always try and avoid that
Mm,
with my actors, especially because I know what it's like. Um, you know, I often this is like I said I've said through this entire podcast that I work in a strange way. This is how sort of strange I work. I'll often tell my actors to not explain to me anything. Just do it. Just let me see it. Because what I don't want you to do is for you to tell me your ideas. Because if you tell me ideas, I'm gonna get a bigger picture. As a director, I'm gonna start having bigger pictures. And if I see it on stage and it's different, it's gonna ruin my big picture. So I'll say, don't tell me anything. If you want to change something, do it. I don't want you to give me any warning. You know, if for whatever reason during a scene you get the urge to flip a table, don't tell me you're gonna do it. Just do it in the scene. And first things first, it catches every other actor off guard, and
mm.
it makes all their reactions truly genuine. And two, when I direct, I sit there and I watch it from an audience's perspective, and I think, how is an audience going to see this? So if something new happens and everyone's reaction is raw and real, I'm like, wow, amazing, great. They're doing the job for me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of room for improvisation in what you
Of
do,
course,
which is I'm big on that in my
like
acting. I think it's important.
we improvise and we collaborate, and then I am there to tweak. I'm there to add detail. Their work is their work. I think I've had no hand in any of the actors' characters. Like I said, the cast of When You Die, they're amazing. Like I said, they've put all the work in for their characters. Sure, Fred's done all the writing, and the writing's brilliant, and it's the thing that sparks the characters to life. But they've done all the work on the characters. Um, I have an opinion on this, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or disagree with me. And it's the best books are books that allow you to imagine the world in your heads.
Of course.
And my opinion on acting is the best theatre or the best films allow you to see that world for yourself. That really sort of like they dare to share their human emotion, and you get to see that. You know, I don't think it's the job of the actor to sort of like feel all this emotion and have it. Of course, you get lost in it. Um, but what I mean is, we shouldn't be selfish as actors,
No.
because it is the job of the audience to see that and feel that.
I will say, actually, you raise a really good point. I see acting on set and theatre as being a lot like a football match. If you've got a selfish actor or a selfish member of the team, it will just ruin the whole
Ruins it.
production.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really ruins it.
No, we're supposed
Uh,
to work together
mhm.
to get the best out of each other.
Yeah, exactly. I think the writers write amazing dialogue for us as actors. Um, the actors, they are like instruments. We play and we make cool noises and we do funny stuff. And the director shapes that and composes that into the production. Um, oh, you disappeared for a second. You good?
Yeah, all good, all good. Don't
Okay.
worry, don't worry.
Yeah, and we sort of we with the help of a director, almost acting like a composer, sort of like build this symphony of a film, and then the editors um hone it in and sort out the EQs and sort of make sure that it's all condensed right and sounds nice, and then send it off for people to enjoy. It's a full team. It's a full team process, and I think if there's selfishness involved, then it ruins it.
Tell me about your theatre group, Flat Pack Theatre. How did it come to be? What's it about? Where's the name from?
Flat Pack Theatre. Um, funny enough, I'm not the best person to talk to about that. So I wasn't involved in the creation of Flat Pack Theatre. It was developed originally by Frederick Torrance and Felix Ramsden, who were the co-founders. And it started out while they were in university. They started out with a play called Two and a Half Shots, which was how Fred wrote a play dealing with alcoholism. He wrote Two and a Half Shots. Um, Felix, who is sorry, my phone's gone off. That's annoying me. Felix, who he's also brilliant. He's more of a cinematographer, and he now runs Flatpack Media, which is the sort of like the media side of the theatre company. Um, there was a production they did called Pint of Theatre last year, and I was involved in that. Now I've known Fred for a long time. We've been friends since we were both 16. Um, and but we did our own thing. You know, we both left college and he went off and did his own work and went to university. I went to drama school, did sort of traditional training. We ended up just meeting by chance and collaborating on this show, Pint of Theatre, where I was an actor in it. And then he asked me to come back to do When You Die. And I've just sort of like, I mean, I love that theatre company to bits. It's gorgeous. So any chance I have to sort of collaborate is better. So oddly, it's I can only tell you what I can see from an outsider, um, because as much as I work with them quite heavily, I wouldn't say I am part of that theatre company. I come and I go when I please. Um, but Felix and Fred are, excuse my French, but they are a pair of ambitious motherfuckers. You know, and you need people like that. You really do. It's people like that that empower you to put the work in. You know, they have some big plans. I mean, this is year two, I believe, of their 5-year roadmap that ends with them, hopefully, performing at Edinburgh Fringe and the Royal Exchange and doing stuff. And you know what? Since last year, they've worked on it. I mean, we're doing Manchester Fringe, from this theatre company sort of being set up during when they were in university, and they're ambitious and they're crazy. Um, and it's people like that that change the world. Flatpack Theatre, the name. I honestly could not tell you why the name Flatpack Theatre. I think it sounds brilliant. I think it's an excellent name. Um, but I genuinely have no idea. And we could sit here and make it up ourselves. Hell, I could. So it'd be funny. Give me one moment. I'm going to see if I can get hold of Fred on the phone and see if he'll tell me why. Like,
This will be the first on my show, a live call in the middle of a podcast.
is it? Let me let's see if I can get hold of it.
Ah!
Is he in work? That is the question. I don't want to be calling him. He's in work, or do I? That would be quite funny. Yeah, let's do it. There we
Oh
go.
my God.
I've got him on the Let's see if he answers. He might not. He might have some choice words to say. Oh, he's unavailable to join. Oh well, I'm gonna
We tried. We
Hi
tried.
mate, it's David. I just wanted to ask why the name Flatpack Theatre? We're currently still recording the podcast. It's going very, very well. I've told everyone how amazing and how handsome you are. But yeah, something I don't actually know is why the name Flatpack Theatre. I don't know that. Um, thanks, mate. Yeah, I'll send that off to him.
Well, maybe we'll
I
get a response.
We'll see how it goes. But no, genuinely, I have no idea why it's called Flatpack Theatre. Um,
So,
I could make it up.
I got a couple of final questions for you to
Go
round
for
things
it.
off. You are forklift certified. How difficult was it to achieve that?
um, it was really difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wish I am forklift certified. That is, I'm telling the genuine, God honest truth. So before I was so I'll tell you the story. So over COVID, um, I we just finished shooting the Batman because the Batman was filmed over COVID. It's filmed in Liverpool,
Hmm.
which I think is funny because when you think of Gotham City, a crime-ridden city, you think of Liverpool. So we filmed in Liverpool. That was brilliant. But after that, I wasn't working because everyone's getting furloughed, and obviously it was the height of the lockdown. So I was like, right, I'll get a job that's like crucial. So I got a job in a warehouse, um, and I did my forklift training there in a warehouse. And I thought, yes, this is me. I was, it was a really, really important job. I was like shipping PPE from warehouses into trucks. It was a really important job. And then I got furloughed for that. So I have my license somewhere in one of these, somewhere in my wallet somewhere that shows that I'm forklift certified. And I've
What
never
was the
done anything with
reason?
it.
What was the reason you got furloughed for that? Since it was actually in a essential job. What was the deal there?
Pardon?
And how come you got furloughed for that?
Um, I apparently they didn't need as many staff to run the place.
Ah, okay.
Because well, basically they didn't. The government were paying furlough, and the company that was delivering PPE wasn't getting enough money. So they said, "Oh, we'll just give you off to the government to be a problem to them." Um, yeah, most of my COVID time was spent looking for work because I've got ADHD. I'm get very bored very easily. But no, that's the reason I'm forklift certified because of COVID. Um,
There you
yeah,
go.
there you go.
Now we know. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
What's it like being a cat dad?
Oh, come here. Oh, she's great.
There
She's
you
wonderful.
go.
She's wonderful. So this is Bronte. She's currently staring at me. Now I've put her down now, but she's looking at me. Amazing, sweetheart. She called Bronte because um, my partner was reading Emily Bronte at the time of which we got her. It was a complete fluke. We were not expecting to get this cat. Um, but one of my friends was on their way to pick up a cat in Bootle, which is not far from Liverpool. And as a joke, we had said to my friend, "Oh, has she got a sister?" Because she was picking up a kitten, and she went, "Yeah, 40 quid, and you can have her."
Hey,
So for best £40 ever spent. We had her from when she was 14 weeks old, and she's now my love. How old is the cat?
A year and a month back.
A year and a month she is now. So
there you go.
we've had her for nearly a year now, and she's been an absolute godsend. She's been a menace. As you can see, I don't know if you can tell, sort of on this back wall here, bits of like claw marks on the walls and all
That's what
that
they
sort of
do, isn't
stuff.
it? That's their thing.
Yeah.
They like doing that.
Um, but she's awesome. She's brilliant.
What has acting and theatre taught you about life?
what, what hasn't it taught me? Um, how can I sum this up in a quickly? Um, that nothing happens for a reason. It's often the mistakes we make and often the coincidences that happen that are the most beautiful parts of life. And the things we enjoy the most and often our most vivid memories. Um, yeah, I think things that don't happen for a reason are often the most beautiful things. And the mistakes we make as well are often the most telling and the most, the things we can learn from the most.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Can I give you two?
Absolutely. Please
One
do.
was don't lick a frozen lamppost.
Oh, yep.
Um,
Got there.
that used to terrify me as a child.
Mm.
The idea that because when my mum had told me, I assumed it meant you stick there forever, and that's it. That's you. You just have to assimilate with the lamppost. And what's the best piece of advice I ever got? Does it have to be acting related or just
It
any
can be
piece of
anything you
advice?
want, anything at all,
Anything at all.
whatever comes to mind.
Um, it's this soon shall pass.
Mm.
That whole concept. Tom Hanks spoke about it actually. He said, sometimes you feel happy, this too shall pass. Sometimes you feel sad, this too shall pass. Nothing in life is permanent. Um, to quote myself, when I wrote a piece of poetry back in 2018, and if I had to choose a piece of advice myself, it was permanence is dearer in a very disposable era. It's the things that last forever. Um, are things that we can't buy, memories and love and happiness and things like that. And everything else is disposable. It'll eventually go at some point. You'll change clothes. Everything will go. So it's the memories we keep.
What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
The biggest life lesson I've learned so far. Um, I am that I need other people to keep my money for me. If there's one thing I've learned is that if I have money, I spend it. That's my issue. So that other people are better financiers than myself. That's what I've learned. Um, don't trust. Yeah, if you want a piece of advice, don't trust David Collinge with money. He will spend it. That's a piece of advice for the viewers at home. Don't trust me with money.
As we round things off for today, final question for you. Do you have any upcoming projects or final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, so obviously I've been talking about it the whole time. When You Die, you can go and watch it in Manchester at the Anthony Burgess Foundation on the 23rd of July and the Empty Space in Salford on the 24th of July. Tickets are on sale now if you want to go see it at Manchester Fringe. I'm also starting my own theatre company as well, very, very soon. A theatre company called Hallowed Ground Theatre Company. That'll be starting very soon. And social media for that will be up and we'll be working if I can pull my proverbial finger out my proverbial backside. Um, Anything else that's coming up very soon? That's about it. All I'd say is sort of watch the socials. I'm always doing something. I just don't know it yet. You know.
Some profound words there. Thanks for sharing, man. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's been a pleasure being here. It's been wonderful. Yeah.
That's what we like to hear.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again. And to all the listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, as always, I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I did. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.